Opera building, that limestone building up ahead to the left, that is home of the second largest opera auditorium in the United States. 3,500 seats behind this big wall labeled for your convenience. Now, if you look up at the whole opera house, the whole thing resembles a giant throne. It's got two armrests and a backrest, and the seat faces west. Now, people have theorized that 20th century railroad businessman, Mr. Samuel Insull, who paid for the building and lived in the penthouse at the top for a year till he went bankrupt, wanted the opera house to be a throne overlooking his railway business empire to the west, while turning his back to New York, where he felt he was snubbed out of his rightful position as CEO of General Electric. He was a protege of Thomas Edison himself, after all. It's a great story, and it's not true. The truth is, Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White probably designed those narrow upper floor plans independently of Mr. Insull to allow for cross ventilation. Up to the right is that giant, dark steel tower with those two white antennas on top. That, of course, is the tallest building in the city of Chicago. The name of it, spelled W-I-L-L-I-S, pronounced Sears Tower. Its original name was Sears Tower. Its official name since 2009 has been Willis Tower, but in our hearts, for the most part, Willis Tower is still Sears Tower. Now, it is the tallest building in Chicago. It was the tallest building in the world for 23 years, from 1973 till 1996. This was the tallest building in the world. Is 2 North Riverside Plaza. It's from 1929 by Hollibird and Root. It's Art Deco style, vertical lines and stair-stepping setbacks, making it narrower toward the top. Now, this building has two interesting firsts to its name. Number one, the trees there are in the first public plaza designed to be public along the river in downtown Chicago, representing the very beginnings of Chicagoans starting to view the river as a public amenity and not just an industrial corridor. Also, 2 North Riverside Plaza was the first building in the United States to be built using air rights. Air rights is an entity owning land and selling the air above that land. The railroad still owns, in this case I think it's CN Rail, still owns the ground that this building stands on, but the owners of 2 North Riverside own the air above that. The Potawatomi were the people who lived in this region for generations before anyone like me got anywhere near here. We mentioned them already. Now, the Potawatomi told a couple Frenchmen, Louis Joliet and Jacques Marquette, in the 1670s, that the river was called Chicago. Kinda. It was something like that. The thing is, we're not sure. The Frenchmen decided how they'd spell it, and then we named our city after how they spelled it. So it was something like that. But the thing is, we might have looked into names altogether different if we'd learned what that Potawatomi name actually meant. It meant the place of bad smells. That's true. It's because the river flowed through that swamp, and in that swamp grew an abundance of a species of little wild, anyone know? Onions, or wild garlic. And in the summer heat, those little onions would ripen and rot and stink up the place, and that's how the Potawatomi referred to the river. New York's the Big Apple. Chicago is the smelly onion. All right. Now, modern glass and steel throughout the building, and a Greek temple roof on top, past and present together. That's postmodern. And now for something completely different. On the right side of the boat is the shorter concrete 55 West Wacker, a great example of brutalism. Brutalist architecture is not meant to be an insulting term. It gets its name from the French word brut, meaning raw, referring to the raw, unpolished concrete exterior. It's from 1968 by C.F. Murphy. Okay. Ahead to the right is a green tower with gold on top. Ahead of the boat, a green tower with gold on top in front of the boat. That's the Carbide and Carbon building. It's from 1928 by the Burnham brothers, 2 sons of Daniel Burnham. It was built during Prohibition, when all alcohol was illegal in the United States. That green tower, tapering up to a decorative golden topper, is meant to resemble a champagne bottle in protest to Prohibition. It's the only building in the city clad with green terracotta, and the gold on top is real gold leaf. It's Art Deco style. It was an office building, now it's a hotel. Now, on the right side of the boat, this big fancy building with the dome on top is the old Jewelers building. It's a mixed office building from 1927 by Jaber and Dinkelberg. Now, after the next bridge, we're jumping ahead. Ahead to the left is the Trump Tower, which is the second tallest building in the city. 1,388 feet, 423 meters tall, with 98 stories. Now, the Trump Tower is the second tallest building in town, and the height includes the spire on top. Because again, according to everyone's favorite organization, say it with me, the International Council of Tall Buildings and Urban Habitat, permanent non-removable spires count toward the heights of buildings. This one has a permanent spire, so it counts. Now, look at the roof levels. The second highest roof is the same height as our first building, AMA Plaza, just behind us. And the lowest roof of the Trump Tower is the same height as the building with the clock tower ahead of us. This building was designed by some very Chicagoan architects, Skidmore, Owings & Merrill, with lead architect, Chicago-born and raised Adrian Smith. Adrian Smith designed those roof levels to pay some respect to the building's older neighbors in the skyline. Now, ahead to the left, I can wait for the music. We'll continue after the bridge. After this bridge, we're going to look immediately to the left at that limestone building with the very ornate top. So immediately to the left, this limestone tower with vertical lines and a fancy top, that's the Tribune Tower. In the 1920s, the Chicago Tribune held a contest seeking the most beautiful design for a new office tower to be their new home. They selected that neo-Gothic Art Deco style design submitted by Hood and Howells as the winner. The Tribune paid for the building's construction and stayed in that building till 2018. Still embedded in the walls of the Tribune Tower are pieces of the Berlin Wall, the Great Wall of China, the Alamo, the former World Trade Centers, many other newsworthy things, chunks of newsworthy things from our hour. That's the St. Regis Chicago. The St. Regis was finished in 2020. It is 1,200 feet or 365 meters tall with 101 stories. It's currently the third tallest building in the city, and it's currently the tallest building in the world designed by a woman, a lead female architect. That woman is Jeannie Gang. Jeannie Gang is based not far away at all. Now, way up near the top of the St. Regis, there are 2 floors missing. As the building went up, the architect saw that there was more potential than originally anticipated for the building to sway in the wind. It wasn't going to fall over, but the problem was it might bend enough that it might crack some windows, because glass can't bend like steel can. So in order to protect the windows, they let the wind blow through a space to make the building sway less overall. And they proved that eventually our river would take so much water from Lake Michigan that parts of the lake would become shallow enough to no longer be navigable. So we were forced to build. Immediately to the right there, the Chicago Harbor Lock. The lock is the only direct connection between the lake and river, but it still separates them with a series of closable gates built in the 1930s for one reason: to slow down the flow of lake water, entering the still reversed, but much, much cleaner and healthier than it once was, Chicago River. At the Illinois Institute of Technology, IIT, but not all of his students ended up liking rectangles like he did. Ahead to the right, these 2 circular towers were designed by one of Mies van der Rohe's students. The 2 circular towers on the right are called Marina City. They're from 1968 by Bertrand Goldberg. Goldberg was inspired by nature. He said there are no square shapes in nature. He wanted round, natural-looking shapes for people to live in. In addition, look at the circular parking ramps up to the right. When Marina City went up in the 1960s, not very many people lived in the city center in downtown Chicago. So in order to attract residents to move downtown, Goldberg filled Marina City with its own amenities. It had its own grocery store, movie theater, bowling alley, skating rink, marina on the river, and those parking ramps above. And folks, having seen those parking structures up there to the right, you might have gotten nervous imagining cars falling right off and into the river. But there's no need to worry. That's only happened twice. That's true. But both times were filmed stunts. Once was for Steve McQueen's movie The Hunter, and the other was for an auto insurance commercial. Now folks, jumping ahead to the right is a brick building. The brick building after the next bridge ahead to the right is the Reed Murdoch Center, 111 years old, by George Nimmons. It is what we call we already did international. This one is Chicago school style. Chicago school style is defined by being an early example of using load-bearing internal steel framing. You see, the brick on this building is just decorative. In fact, that wouldn't even be enough brick to hold it up if it was supposed to. It's the steel framing within the walls that holds the building up. Now that concept of using internal load-bearing steel, which is fundamental to modern architecture, was first developed here in Chicago, primarily by architect William LeBaron Jenney. So that's the Merchandise Mart. The Merch Mart was the biggest building in the world by floor space in 1930, with 400,000 square meters or 4.2 million square feet of space. It is Art Deco style, vertical lines, stair-stepping setbacks, making it narrower toward the top with geometric ornamentation throughout. All that together, that's Art Deco style. Now the Merchandise Mart was designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White, and it was paid for by Marshall Field's department stores to consolidate their warehouses into one enormous riverfront warehouse. It's a mixed office building today, and up until 2008, the U.S. Postal Service gave the Merchandise Mart its own unique zip code or postal code. That was 606. Is that round glass tower with the arch at the base. The round glass tower with the arch at the base, ahead to the left, is the River Point. River Point is from 2017 by Picard and Chilton, on that arch at the base there. It is LEED, LEED Platinum certified. That's leadership in energy and environmental design. Two key factors in making it environmentally friendly is that it was constructed using a lot of recycled materials, and it uses river water to supplement its air conditioning. It's a mixed office building today, and that load-bearing, the arch at the base is a load-bearing support, and the angle and shape of that arch is deliberately designed to hold up the building while avoiding passing through the railroads tucked on either side tightly of that building underneath it. Now ahead to the left is another red brick boxy building. The boxy brick building ahead to the left is the oldest building on the tour. That's Fulton House. It's from 1898, 127 years old. It was originally a cold storage warehouse. So a brick building with walls that were 3 feet or 1 meter thick, insulated with tons of the best insulation science could provide in 1898, horsehair and cork. Now, it was built to keep perishable goods cool, but look at the starfish on the wall and the porthole windows near the top. Those are new additions to the building. They were only added when the building was adapted to be residential in the 1980s by a guy called Harry Weiss. He likes boats. He likes to put boat theming on his buildings. These big steel beams that focus its way to its central core, and inside the top of the tower, there are 150,000 gallons or 500,000 liters of water in a mass damper. When wind blows against the building, the water in tanks on tracks is shifted against the wind to keep it steady. Now, it would stay upright without the mass damper, but it prevents it from swaying nauseatingly on windy days, and actually mass dampers are pretty common. Lots of skyscrapers have some sort of shiftable weight to help keep them steady in a strong wind. Now, the Wrigley Building was finished in 1924, designed by Graham, Anderson, Probst, and White. Just turned 100 last year. The Wrigley Building is a mixed office building today. It was, of course, built to be the home of the Wrigley Chewing Gum Company, which is still based in Chicago, but not in this building anymore. And the Wrigley Building is clad in about 300,000 individual white glazed terracotta clay tiles in 6 different shades. Now, terracotta clay is very common in early 20th century Chicago architecture, but terracotta clay, not but, because terracotta clay had 3 attributes that every early 20th century Chicagoan found appealing, namely being cheap while easy to make look classy while also being fireproof. One of the earliest fireproof materials we used to protect our city after the Great Chicago Fire. In front of the boat is the Canal Street Railroad Bridge. It is 111 years old, and it is completely operational. Dozens of trains today go over it, and it's lifted on a regular basis. Now, when that bridge ahead of us needs to be raised, the central span is hoisted as one piece like an elevator between the 2 towers. Typically, no one is in that bridge house in the middle of the bridge anymore. It used to be operated from there, but now it's operated remotely from the Amtrak rail yard about a mile north. King Tom Memorial Park, King Tom himself lobbied City Hall to build Chinatown a new park to replace what they had lost. Look immediately to the right. It's got these big slabs of concrete hanging off the end of the bridge to the right. Those 2 big concrete blocks are the bridge's counterweights. Calibrated to weigh the same as the span of the bridge, it's so well balanced, it only takes about a 100 horsepower engine to move it down or up. That style of drawbridge, balanced on a pivot with counterweights on one end, is called a back-fueled trunnion style drawbridge.